Hi, Sophia. We haven't started yet. We're just waiting for about a minute before we start. Can you hear us now? All right, we'll go ahead and get started. Jessica, Jennifer, Deborah, are you guys ready?
Yes.
Great. Thank you again for all three of you for joining us on this training program we were hoping to do with a lot more advisors. Because it's in the evening, we might not get a lot of advisors coming on, but we will be using this to help them train up, and if they have questions after they've watched the recording, they might reach out to you directly with more for more details or information. I'm Ishrat. I am the REAC for India and Central Asia, and I help train all the advisors in the region. We have about 50 advisors in my region, and all of South and Central Asia is included, so that includes about 78 advisors that will probably get to see this training, and so it's great that we're able to do this. So thank you again. So before anything else, I'll just let you guys get started. We've already started recording, so we'll let you guys get started. I might increase the volume a little bit, so let me know if you hear yourself echo, if any technical difficulties come up, so that I can manage it from this end.
Okay, thank you. My name is Jessica Hall, and I'm the Director of International Programs here at UNC Pembroke, and I am joined by Dr. Jennifer Twiddell. She is the head of the nursing program here at UNCP, and also with Deborah Singletary. She is in charge of the graduate program with regard to licensure. And so we are presenting today on graduate nursing programs in the United States, specifically regarding the application process for admission to a grad school, as well as requirements for a nursing program specific to U.S. schools, and we'll highlight some of the requirements for both graduate admissions to UNC Pembroke, which is the university we represent, as well as nursing requirements specific to UNCP, and I'll chime in from an immigration standpoint so that we get a holistic view of the admission process to a graduate school as well as a nursing program in the United States. So I'll turn it over to Deborah Singletary to discuss the admissions requirements for a graduate program.
Well, good morning again. How are you all today? I'd like to go into our admissions process, our general admissions process for any student, for any program, and then specifically go into, I'll turn it over to Dr. Twiddell to go into what's required for our nursing program. And we basically determine acceptance on two things: if a student is academically ready and the ability to afford the program. We welcome any potential graduate student from any other nation. The eligibility for consideration for acceptance would be that a person would submit an online application. We have that at our graduate website, and we have a link there provided for you. We have an application fee for all students. We require that transcripts are submitted for our international students. We do require that they have
We'll take care of the mic issue.
Okay, it's right here with me. Okay. Once again, we do have an online application that students can fill out. It's located at our link that we have provided here for you. With that application, we would require an application fee. We do require official transcripts, and for our international students, we require that the transcripts be evaluated by an accredited educational evaluation service. And a couple that we have had submitted before have been from the World Education Services or even the International Education Services. But there are others, and I do have provided a link there for them to look at for accredited education evaluation services. If needed, we do require an English translation of all the transcripts, an official score report of the GRE or the MAT. The GRE is the Graduate Record Exam, or the Miller Analogies Test, if that's needed for a particular program. Some of our programs require it, some do not. And for nursing, it is not required. We require that the international students submit a satisfactory score on the test of English or foreign language or the International English Language Testing System if English is not their native language. And then we require 3 professional or academic recommendations on their behalf. And as international students, we're going to require that they submit proof of financial support, the financial certification. We do have a link there that they can access in order to access that financial certification and what's needed there. If you have any additional questions about the admissions requirements for international students, it can be found on our graduate school website at www.uncp.edu/grad.
Now, Deborah, let me ask a quick question. These requirements, they're specific to UNCP, but most of these requirements would be generic for any student applying to any U.S. school. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Did you want to? Let me pause and talk about some immigration considerations that international students applying to a university in the U.S. might want to consider. With regard to funding, the government requires that international students be able to demonstrate that they have funding to support if they're on an F1 visa. And I was looking at it from an F1 visa standpoint. That's a degree-seeking student. They need to be able to show funds for 1 academic year of their program. If they're a J1 student, of course, they would need to show funding for the length of the immigration document. So if their immigration program for nursing was 2 years, they would need to be able to show funding for 2 years. We at UNCP require that they show liquid funds, meaning they have immediate access to it. We have the requirements that they be less than 6 months old and that they be usually converted into US dollars. If not, it's okay because we can use the currency converter to do it. But every university might have their own requirements for funding, but they will need to show them. That's what the important thing is. With regard to language training, English proficiency is required in order to generate a program-specific immigration document, whether it be for the F or the J. If a student needs language proficiency to get into an academic program or a graduate school, then they would need to demonstrate that. Some universities have an in-house ESL program. UNC Pembroke does have an ESL program that students can apply to, be admitted to, and take until they have met the requirements for admission to our grad school. CIP codes, that's the code that is used to demonstrate what major the student is studying in the United States. And I just wanted to point out here that nursing is not yet on a STEM field with regard to the STEM extension. So the student that gets it, if they're an F1, is eligible for optional practical training for 1 year, but not for the 24-month extension. Same thing if they're on a J1, they would be eligible for academic training. And then with regard to timing, with any student, international specifically, wanting to come to the U.S. to apply, they would need to give themselves at least a 6-month window ahead of time so that they can go through the visa process. They need to be fully admitted before an immigration document can be issued, and they just need to plan it based on their schedule as for when they want to start a program of study, because they can apply for the visa 120 days before their program starts. So now I'm going to pass it over to Dr. Twaddell to discuss the specifics of a nursing program in the United States. Good morning. What happened there? Oh, that jumped. Hold on. Okay. Sorry. Here you go.
It jumped all the way to the end.
Good morning. In the United States, there are many benefits to having a baccalaureate degree and a master's degree. In the United States, in some places, you have to have a baccalaureate degree in order to work in a healthcare facility. And in the United States, there's also a lot of research that shows that their patients have better outcomes with a baccalaureate degree, which is why it's required. The master's degree is really a specialty degree, and it allows for certifications at higher levels. And both degrees do offer possibility of increased salary range and advanced placement in positions. There are some programs in the United States that allow you to move straight from the diploma or associate degree into the bachelor's degree or into the master's degree. It's a little quicker. We do offer that program here at UNC Pembroke. It's called the RN to BSN track, and it just allows a student to move through the program at a quicker rate if they do not already have the bachelor's degree. There's a short overview here on your screen that shows the approximate number of credit hours in the United States that you would need for each degree. It's about 63 credit hours of just general coursework, such as your English and your math. I think I have a sample coming up. About 25 semester hours at the baccalaureate level. You do get some credit for already having an associate degree or a diploma if you're a nurse. And then about 40 hours of MSN work. So it's about 160 hours almost for the master's degree in the United States. That is just a general slide overview. It shows the number of English credits or arts and humanities, social sciences, that sort of thing that are basic general requirements for all bachelor's degrees in the United States. Baccalaureate coursework may look similar to this in many programs. There are courses in just transitioning to the profession, coursework in health assessment, pathophysiology, and then into a lot of the specialty tracks, med-surg or OB, peds, that sort of time of, sorry, we're looking at our time, that sort of coursework that is needed just to become a generalist. A baccalaureate degree in the United States is a generalist degree. So it just gives them an overview of the different fields of nursing. The master's degree, however, since it is a specialty degree, is a lot more focused. And these are general courses that are needed for all master's degrees. I know in the state of North Carolina, and I feel for sure across much of the United States, you need coursework in theory, in advanced research, and then specific to the state of North Carolina, and as I feel probably pretty securely that it's across the United States, you need advanced pathophysiology, pharmacology, and then physical health assessment. Once the general core courses are completed for a master's degree, you then choose a specialty. And while there are many programs across the United States that offer clinical degrees, such as a nurse practitioner, UNC Pembroke does not, and so I chose these three to kind of focus on. We have 3 non-clinical degrees, but they all lead to certifications. And so upon completion of the degree, the nurse would be able to sit for a certification. The clinical nurse leader degree focuses on microsystems. It's usually someone who works in a facility, particularly a unit or one area of a facility, and they focus on looking at ways to solve problems, but they look at it from an economic point of view as well as a functional point of view, and are typically a very good person to be in charge or someone to be analyzing or watching your unit. The CNL degree has become very popular with the VA medical systems in the United States and are a requirement on many of those units. The CNL curriculum is just here for you. It has work in policy, epidemiology, community health, and leadership. The nurse educator is also very popular. This degree is required if you want to teach at a community college. Well, the master's degree is required if you want to teach at a community college or at a university in the United States. The certification is not a requirement, but the degree is. And it's for someone who wants to teach even in staff development or on a unit as well. Sample curriculum is there. It looks at populations, it looks at curriculum design, classroom teaching, clinical teaching.
and an evaluation. The Rural Case Manager track, we're the only program in the state of North Carolina that has this track. It is growing, but we are very rural here in southeastern North Carolina, and this is really a track that looks at the macro system, and so it's really for someone who wants to help those in large areas to make sure that they're accessing community resources properly and that they are getting in touch with things that they need on a larger scale.
May I pause here? Would this be a degree that international students would be interested in if they're in a rural community?
Absolutely, absolutely. This is really a lot of our health departments focus on this degree.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Sample curriculum is here for the Rural Case Manager, and it again looks at policy and finance just like the Clinical Nurse Leader does, but then it moves into human relations and case management. And those are really big issues with the Rural Case Manager degree.
And then we have some questions. Let me start with the two questions that have actually been posed. With regard to the first question, it says, should translations be confirmed by a notary? I'm assuming you're speaking to the financial certification or the translation of the degree. Deborah, can you speak to the requirement for a notary signature on translations?
Usually the translations are notarized.
Okay, if you weren't able to hear, she said usually the translations are notarized. From an immigration standpoint, with regard to the financial certification, we do require a bank signature if the student is using an official bank statement that is on our document. For example, we have an official bank statement, just a generic one on our letterhead. If the student wants to use that, then it would require a stamp from the bank. If the student is using a third-party provider, an uncle, a sister, a parent for their bank statement, then we do require an affidavit of support as well as the bank statement. Both of those can be stamped by the bank. Depending on the country, I know notary signatures are kind of hard to obtain, but as long as we can see that it's not just filled out by the students, that it is in fact supported by a bank, then we would accept a document that doesn't necessarily have a notary signature but a bank stamp. And then the second question is with regard to is an application to an ESL program separate from a general application to the nursing school? So here at UNC Pembroke, and I can only speak to what we do at UNC Pembroke, an international student can apply to a university, either grad or undergrad. If they meet all the requirements with the exception of the language proficiency, then their application is immediately sent over to the ELI program, and the student can be admitted to the ELI program. And then once they pass the ELI program, they can reapply to the undergrad program or the grad program. Now, some universities have a separate application. We do at UNCP, but it's nothing. It's really an additional sheet asking about their English proficiency background versus a whole separate application. But every university in the United States might be a little bit different. We don't do conditional admission at UNCP. We don't do provisional admission. And the F1 regulations actually clarified not within the last 2 months that it wasn't. The regulations always said you could not be provisionally admitted or conditionally admitted on an F1, but now they've actually stated it and they're enforcing it. At Pembroke, we never did that. A student was either admitted or they weren't admitted. Other universities might interpret that differently. So it would, I would encourage the students to go specifically to that university and ask what their requirements are. What is our current international population? At UNC Pembroke, we've got about 7,000 students altogether, and our international students are less than 1% of that. We are hoping to grow our program, specifically with programs such as nursing that can be great for any country. It's not specific to the U.S. Is it possible to get an internship in the U.S.? Yes. From an immigration standpoint, yes, and I'll let Dr. Twiddell talk
about internships for the nursing program, but F1 visa holders are eligible for OPT after they complete their program of study or before, depending, but they're also eligible for CPT, which is curricular practical training. Those are work authorizations that allow them to do internships on campus or off campus before the program ends or after the program ends. J1 students are eligible for academic training, and that can be done during their program of study or after their program of study. Most students tend to do internships during the summer between academic semesters or work authorization immediately following their program completion. And I'll let Jennifer talk about any internships that are specific to her program.
There are opportunities. Some are just shadowing opportunities where you go and spend time with nurses who are doing something that you would like to do. Some of our students actually go and work as certified nursing assistants or CNAs during the program. A lot of our nurses, if they're coming for the master's degree, do work full-time or part-time while they're going to school. So there are those opportunities as well. I see the next question, or another question, asks about support for work placement. UNC Pembroke, the nursing program, was actually just recognized as having the highest job placement rate upon graduation as any other program on campus. So 100% of our nurses who, even before they take state boards and graduate with a baccalaureate degree, have a job. So it is definitely a much needed field. As far as a master's degree, yes, there are plenty of job opportunities for nurses with a master's degree, and several of them also have jobs upon graduation. And I've worked with a couple who wanted specific jobs to go and assist them with making connections and getting placed.
And I'll chime in from an immigration standpoint. After they complete the program of study, if they're an F1 student, they're eligible for 1 year of OPT, which is optional practical training in the United States. As I mentioned earlier in the presentation, unfortunately at this time, the nursing CIP code is not recognized as a STEM extendable field. So the student would only have, if they're an F1 student, 1 year. However, students can be supported on the H-1B visa, which is an employment visa. J1s, they're eligible to work up to 18 months once they complete their program of study. The only hindrance they might have going from a J1 to an H1 is the 2-year home requirement. That is a regulatory requirement from having the J1. Students can get that waived with support from their home country, and it's a self-petition to the Department of State to get that waived. But a lot of students do get the H-1B, and then they can, of course, that's good for 3 years, and then an additional 3 years, and then they could apply for the green card process with support of their employer. Are there any other questions? What kind of financial aid is provided, if any? I can speak to something very exciting that is going, well, not from a graduate standpoint.
Graduate, we have GA-ships.
Okay, so I will let Deborah talk a little bit about GA-ships that UNCP offers.
We do have the graduate assistantships where students can work on campus with different departments, and certainly try to match them up with the area of study that they're in. It's a general process. They'll submit an application just as any other student would, and they are screened and interviewed by the different departments and then hired. They're able to work 20 hours, take 9 semester hours of graduate coursework, work on the campus, and with the graduate assistantship, it's really good because they're able to kind of work their study schedule in with their work schedule. It provides, of course, money for them, and even sometimes if we have extra money in the long process, we allot it to different things that would help the graduate assistant as well. But it is an opportunity. They would have to interview and compete for it, but it is there for them.
Okay, Jennifer, are there any scholarships or financial aid specific to the nursing program?
We have one scholarship that's from a specific hospital that is earmarked. If it reads such that we can offer it to a master's student, but I believe they are limited.
Okay. And I can speak just from the international student perspective. International students need to show that they have financial financial funding if they're an F1 for their first year of their studies, if they're a J1 for the entire year or for the entire program that they'll be in the United States. It is difficult for international students to get financial assistance, especially from, they're not eligible from any state agency or federal agency, but they are eligible as long as there's scholarships that are not specific or not specific to U.S. citizens. An international student can apply to any financial packet that a university offers. At UNC Pembroke, starting in the fall 2018, our university was selected, along with two others in the UNC system, that tuition for out-of-state students and international students would fall under out-of-state students. The tuition is going to drop to $5,000 a year. $500 a semester
For undergrad.
Unfortunately, that will not apply to our graduate students, but for undergraduate students that are interested in the nursing program, they would benefit from the tuition drop. And so, because international students are considered out-of-state students, and that will go into effect fall 2018. Students would still have to show funding for living expenses. That would include food and insurance and books, but the tuition would drop for out-of-state students.
Very competitive. We're very competitive in that.
If they would like to know, are there any age limitations younger than? With regard to admission, as far as I know, as long as the student is eligible, there is no age limit to a degree program. However, from an immigration standpoint, if they are under 18 years old, they will need to have their parents sign their immigration document until they are 18 years old. But other than that, we have at UNC Pembroke had 17-year-olds on our campus that are international students. And all of our international students tend to live together in a particular section of our apartment complex, and so they're sort of looking out for each other anyway. But that might be different for private institutions in the United States or larger public institutions. What is the acceptance rate for international students to the BSN and MSN?
That's a very good question. I don't know that I have statistics. For the baccalaureate program, our student population is very representative of the UNCP campus. So we do have quite a few diverse students as far as international students. We typically have, I'd like to say 2 or 3 per class, which is probably about correct, and our classes are about 80 students. For the master's program, I currently do not have any international students in the master's program. But would certainly be open to discussing those options with you.
And that doesn't mean that they're not eligible. They're absolutely eligible. It's just that I think a lot of our international students don't know yet about the gem that our school is.
Right.
And so once the word gets out, I do believe our numbers will increase for both our undergrad and graduate programs. Our housing options for students. UNCP, every university in the U.S. will have options for on-campus living or off-campus living, a dorm style versus an apartment style. And it really depends. Oh, and some universities have graduate housing and family housing, and international students are eligible to apply for any housing that best fits their needs. At UNC Pembroke, students can apply for dorm style, which is usually 4 students to a suite, and each person has their own room. They might have, if the suite is bigger, they might have a roommate. But they won't have a kitchen, so they'll have to get a meal plan if they're in the dorm style. If they're in the apartment style, then it's usually at UNCP 6 to a suite, 2 per room. And then they share a living space and a kitchen space. Off-campus housing options are all either private rooms or you can share a room with someone, and then you would have a communal kitchen area for up to 4 people, I believe, for most of our off-campus housings. Some students can rent houses for themselves if they have families off campus. It really depends on the setting of the university. So in metropolitan cities, their housing options might be a little limited with regard to the size, but might be, they might have lots of options in a metropolitan, whereas at UNC Pembroke, most of the students live in off-campus housing in apartment-style complexes. Tips for international students to prepare for the application, and what are the admissions trends looking for applications? Go ahead if you. What were some of the tips?
Well, I think for the application process is to start early. Start early. You can submit. You can submit the application and then submit the supporting documentation. Not everything has to be submitted all at one time. So start your application, start submitting your supporting documentation. Let's get the packet together so we can do pretty much what we want to do is a pre-screening before we submit it to the program, making sure that we have everything that we need. And if there is a red flag or a problem with something or concern, we can address that concern with the applicant, get that worked out, and then bring that application in as an admissions packet, and then get it over to the program, because the program will review the application. The application admissions packet represents the student, so we want to have it strong and full strength when it goes over to the program for their review and admissions consideration back to the dean in our graduate school for her approval.
And Jennifer, do you have any tips for international students for the application process?
While academics and your letters of recommendation are certainly needed, they need to be strong. The writing sample that we require is important to nursing. A lot of our master's work is done in projects and in papers, and so we do review the writing samples pretty thoroughly. Our graduate assistant in nursing actually is not a nurse, he's an English major, and it's for that reason, so that we can offer assistance with writing.
And my tip from an international immigration standpoint would be A, start early, and B, go straight to the school if the student has questions or concerns. I know that a lot of international students think that they need to go through an agent to get assistance with the application process. But a lot of universities would prefer to deal directly with the student. That way the student is not getting hearsay information from the agent. No university that I've ever worked with or worked for discourage students from coming directly to the university. And here at UNC Pembroke, I would much rather them get the answers straight from the grad school, straight from the nursing program, straight from myself. That way there's no confusion. We're happy to work with the students with whatever questions they have. A couple of other questions. Are there any nursing programs / universities on the Common App?
I don't know. I'm sorry, I'm not familiar. I do not know.
And then the next question, I believe the Common App, if I'm not mistaken, it's sort of a universal application that a student can fill out for any type of university. That might be true for some programs, but every university might have its own sort of requirements or prereqs that an international student would need to meet. And every application or even department sometimes within universities might have a different requirement. For the School of Education might have an additional requirement than a nursing school would. So I would encourage the students to go straight to that program and that university to find out what the specifics are for that application. What is the application fee for this year? $60. For our graduate program, it is...
For the graduate program is $60.
Is there an application fee for the School of Nursing?
No.
And at UNCP, there is no international student application fee other than to the specific undergrad or grad program. That might differ for private institutions or bigger public institutions in the United States. Our application fee is actually quite reasonable compared to other universities of our same size. And it says, many of our advisors are getting questions about campus safety. Can you talk a bit about that? Absolutely. Our university here at UNC Pembroke, with regard to the UNC system, at UNCP, we're one of the safest universities in the UNC system based on Clery Act reporting and Title IX. Because UNCP is not in a metropolitan location, we're actually in a rural community. And so conservative parents actually prefer our university because international students that come here, they're sort of, our campus is a little oasis in and of itself, is what I tell students. Our office provides programming and transportation options for our students to get out on the weekends and the evenings, but our campus is safe. Most campuses in the U.S. are safe if you're on campus. Our university has an in-house campus police force. They're actually located on campus 24/7. We also have state troopers. We also have city police, and we have county police. There are very few instances of issues on our campus. We tell students to use common sense. Don't walk alone at 2 o'clock in the morning. I wouldn't encourage that for anywhere in the world. Would I encourage somebody to walk at 2 o'clock in the morning? So, and a good orientation at any university is going to include a presentation from campus safety. And so I would encourage students to find out from the university what is included in their orientation sessions. And if campus safety is one of those sessions, then I would feel comfortable sending my student there. Our campus police know who our international students are. They come to the session, they meet with our international students, and so our international students know who our police force is and know that they can go to them for everything from a question about safety to what the weather's going to be like tomorrow. Other questions? Okay, well, our contact information is included. My contact information, phone number, and email, as well as Deborah Singletary, as well as Professor Twaddell. If you have any additional questions or concerns following this presentation, please do not hesitate to let us know. We're happy to answer any questions that you might have. Enjoy your evening, and we look forward to working with you again.
We should think about that in the future. We ought to always mention safety. Because